Let's just go over to David. Yeah. How did you feel Senator Warren and Senator Sanders did in terms of sort of fending off the push from the more moderate?
Well, I thought, as I said earlier, I think they had a great night. I mean, in terms of repelling those people. And what Senator Warren said is true. I have questions about the viability of some of the proposals, and I've said so. I think Medicare for All in the Sanders form is one that is a political liability. She's right about the wealth tax. If you look at polling, that is an idea that actually, more than raising taxes on the wealthy, income taxes, the wealth tax is one. The question is whether it's doable, and there's quite a bit of debate about that.
You're still here. I was giving you an out if you want to answer, David.
Actually, here's the question, David. When you say, is it doable? Lord, we live in a democracy. And if it's something the majority of the people want, then why shouldn't it happen? I get it. I get that rich people own more cars than poor people. I get they may have bigger houses, but they shouldn't own more democracy. And in my view, when the majority of people want to see this happen, and I mean big majorities want to see this happen, then we ought to be able to make it happen. And if we don't, it's because the guys at the top have way too much influence.
I hesitate to say this to an eminent law professor, but my understanding is the argument is about legally how that would. There are some cumbersome legal issues.
I think the question is, we are a democracy, but we're a democratic republic. And in a democratic republic, there is a constitution, and the Constitution may or may not allow for this. And so, what if your most popular idea is just not constitutional?
Oh, come on. You think I didn't talk to constitutional law folks
well, then
before
let us know. You didn't mention it in the debate.
Because it didn't come up.
Yeah.
Of course. And they assure me,
you think
I'm confident we can do this.
Constitutional muster to take wealth from people, not the income tax, but
wealth. We do property taxes all the time. I think we can do this.
Let me ask you a question, though. I felt that your answer with regard to the people who like their insurance may have left some people cold. I think if you tell somebody Medicare for all who want it, like Pete does, that makes sense. But if you tell people, I'm going to force you into a government system, they may rebel, even people that like it. I don't know how you sell that.
So let's just talk, though, for a minute. We got a system right now.
We know the system sucks. Hey, you can't.
It sucks.
Hey, listen, my mom just passed. My mom just passed away, so you don't have to tell me about the system. But how do you get somebody who likes it to say, I'm going to let Elizabeth Warren force me into a public system? It's like public transportation. I got a car. You're going to say I got to give it up to go on the subway. Maybe the subway's nice if I want it, but now you say I have to be in it.
So look, I think that it's entirely fair to say that you got to lay it all out there, let people look at it, let people negotiate it, let people see what all the details are, and let people have a say in those details. So I take very seriously when the unions say, wait a minute, this was part of our compensation. My answer on that is the unions get a seat at the table. Nobody passes anything without getting the unions in there and saying, so what's the deal? Do you have to change the laws in terms of compensation? What happens with those packages? Do people get cash equivalents? So I get it. This is not...
So you're open to some of the process part, but at the end of the day, private insurance companies are out of business.
But look, it's the process part, but it's also the other half about the unsustainability of what we're doing. When people talk about they want to do two systems, we'll let people who want to have health insurance and not. You've got to remember, that means all those community hospitals still have to fill out all the forms. Every doctor still has to fill out all of those forms. Every insurance company still has the capacity to say, nope, we're not covering what your doctor prescribed.
Senator,
going back and forth.
Senator, let me just ask you this question, because you make a very powerful argument for if people support it, we're a democracy, we ought to have it. So what about when people don't support it? I mean, large majority of people don't support this idea. They don't support decriminalizing the border. These are things I know you feel passionately about. You make a very, very powerful argument for them, but they're not supported by a majority of people.
They're not supported today. And Obamacare was not supported at the beginning. This is what leadership is about. We figure out what is right, and then we build a movement to get it done. That's how we make change. You know, if we just waited for hundreds of millions of people to jump on board, we wouldn't be making any changes at all. This is our chance to make real change, and that's what I'm trying to do.
But let's talk about the opposite, which is that 89% of voters in this country believe in universal background checks. 90%. That hasn't happened.
Exactly, and it makes my point. And you know why it hasn't happened? It's corruption in Washington, plain and simple. We have a government that kowtows to the NRA. The NRA uses its money and uses its influence to keep our children at risk because they will not give in.
Preach.
You bet. You bet.
One last question.
I will on this one.
One last question.
You know I will.
John King.
So help a kid from Dorchester whose first campaign was 1988 when Governor Dukakis was the Democratic nominee for Massachusetts. He lost 40 states. I know times change, I know the country changed, but what convinces you that A, with the human chainsaw president we have now, who already says you're all socialists, that you can sell all of this in one national election?
Okay.
That you can sell Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, health care benefits for the undocumented, and so on and so forth in one national election?
So here's the national election. Donald Trump has already made basically his one-sentence pitch. And that is anything in your life that's bad, like you haven't gotten a raise, you know, you're worried about sending your kids to, whatever it is, blame them. People who aren't the same color as you, people who aren't born where you were born, people who don't worship like you, people who don't sound like, blame them. That is his message. My message is, you got things that are broken in your life, I'll tell you exactly why. It's because giant corporations, billionaires, have seized our government. And for decades now, they have been making that government work for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. And they do it mostly out of the headlines. Just a little tilt here, just a little shift there, just a little exception, until over time, they've gotten richer and richer and richer and richer, and everybody else is left eating dirt. That is the message. And that's what we need to get out there and talk about. And then, not enough just to say it's wrong, to say we actually have a plan to fix it. We go after the corruption head on. We restructure this economy in a couple of basic ways. Make it easier to join a union, give workers some power, pass a wealth tax, and protect our democracy. That needs to be a part of what we talk about that we never talked about tonight. We need to make the economy and the democracy.
But how do you,
not just for everyone, but for, and not just for those at the top, but make it work.
But it's a lot of power and influence. You say it won't be corrupt power and influence, but it's still a lot of power and influence in Washington.
Right.
What convinces you that people, especially in some of these states that are, let's just say, to the right of Massachusetts, are not ready to support that?
Look, I think when we talk with people, for example, about the tax on billionaires, they are ready to support it. When they talk about cutting their kids' student loan debt, man, they're in. Talk to people about what it's like today on child care. How many mamas can't finish their education, can't take a job? How many daddies are saying, I can't